What's up, everybody? Give me a couple segments of KCMN presents. This is about the George Floyd. First off, we're gonna do this one. It's called "Witness Off-Duty Firefighter Says She Would Have Given Floyd Medical Attention." This is from MSNBC. I'm just gonna play the audio parts. Like I said, I'm just gonna run a couple pieces off this. Just play the audio parts.
Approached, you said you identified yourself as a firefighter.
Correct.
To whom did you identify yourself?
To Officer Tao, controlling the scene. I spoke loudly enough that I would think that the other three officers would have been able to hear me throughout the event.
We know you weren't. Well, let me ask you this way. How did Officer Tao respond?
He said something along the lines of, if you really are a Minneapolis firefighter, you would know better than to get involved.
What did you think of that?
First, I was worried that he wasn't going to believe me and not let me help. And I also, that's not right. I mean, that's exactly what I should have done. There was no medical assistance on scene, and I got there, and I could have given medical assistance. That's exactly what I should have done.
So based on your training and experience and what you had seen, what did you want to do for this person on the ground?
Had they let me into the scene, I already had decided what his level of consciousness was, so I would have requested additional help. I would have wanted someone to call 911 for the paramedics and fire to come. I would have asked someone to run to the gas station and look for an AED. And I would have checked his airway. I would have been worried about a spinal cord injury because he had so much weight on his neck. I would have opened his airway to check if there were any obstructions. And I would have checked for a pulse. And when I didn't find a pulse, if that was the case, I would have started compressions. And I didn't have my bed bag, so I would have continued compressions. We don't give mouth to mouth anymore. So I would have continued compressions at a rate of 100 a minute until help arrived.
And by compressions, what do you mean?
I would have put my hands, stacked my hands and pressed his chest.
Chest compressions.
Chest compressions,
Yep.
correct, yeah.
And what's the point of doing chest compressions?
Pumping the blood for somebody that's not doing that themselves, trying to get a pulse back.
And were you able to do that, any of those steps?
No, sir.
Why weren't you able to do any of that?
Because the officers didn't let me in to the scene. I also offered, in my memory, I offered to walk them through it, or told them, if he doesn't have a pulse, you need to start compressions, and that wasn't done either.
And so are these things that you wanted to do?
It's what I would have done for anybody.
And when you couldn't do that, how did that make you feel?
Totally distressed.
Were you frustrated?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson, as I told you, we can take our time, so feel free to just take a minute.
Her name is Genevieve Hansen.
Need a drink of water? Go ahead.
Eyewitness testifying Derek Chauvin's murder trial. That's George Floyd's real name.
Okay.
I
Hey,
got
thanks
another
for
video
watching our
queued up.
YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite
Mute this because of commercial. Okay.
Have now testified against their former colleague, that's Derek Chauvin, in his murder trial. Prosecutors called 4 officers to the stand yesterday, including a
another
use
one
of
queued
force
up.
expert
All right.
from the Los Angeles Police Department. As Jamie Yukas reports, all four of them criticized a fired officer's treatment of George Floyd.
My opinion was that the force was excessive.
Let's turn this up
Los
to 11
Angeles
juice.
Police Sergeant Jody Steiger has trained nearly 3,000 police officers in use of force tactics.
They should have slowed down or stopped their force as well.
Steiger's testimony followed more than half a dozen Minneapolis police officers, including Lieutenant Johnny Mercel, the department's own use of force instructor. Chauvin attended his training class in 2018.
Is this an MPD trained neck restraint?
No, sir.
Has it ever been?
Neck restraint?
On the photo, it was showing that
Officer
the officer,
Nicole
when he had his
McKenzie,
knee
the
on
medical
George Floyd's
coordinator
neck.
for the Minneapolis Police Department, was asked about this moment.
I can't breathe. You're doing fine. You're talking fine.
Just because they're speaking doesn't mean they're breathing adequately.
But the defense asked McKenzie if the crowd could have distracted Chauvin, a central point in their case.
It's very difficult to focus on that patient while there's other things around you if you don't feel safe around you.
Ben Crump, one of the Floyd family attorneys, said he has never seen so many officers testify against another.
It is our hope that that will become the norm when police see things that are wrong or violate policy, that they will tell the truth. Thank you. We love y'all.
Floyd's brother Rodney was at a midday prayer service outside the courthouse.
Everyone wants justice. This is all shades of ethnicities that's responding and
By
replying
the way, we
reaching
are
out
day
to us,
8 of the
saying they feel our
the
pain.
Derek Chauvin, a.k.a. George Floyd trial.
Today, that LAPD expert will be back on the stand and likely to face an aggressive cross-examination. While McKenzie was
later on
called by
today
the
or tomorrow.
prosecution, the defense said that it intends to call her back
Video I
about
played
drug
with the
use
first part
as
was from
part
last
of its
week, it was
case.
March
Tony.
31st. This was from
Following
yesterday.
along, Jamie, thank you very much. This Oceanside.
Your transfer. But I'm
Here we go.
approach the witness.
This one's March 30th. This one's called "Do Not Argue with the Court." Chauvin trial. Judge warns witness intense exchange.
Ms. Hanson.
See how we do the time. 7 minutes. Okay. See if I can find a real quick one right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you describe Mr. Floyd as a small, slim man?
Yeah, it appeared to, with 3 grown men on top of somebody, it appeared that he was small and frail.
Okay.
Got another one queued up.
But I know that's
I
not
mean,
to be
there's
true,
no question.
obviously. I was finishing my answer.
This is the same woman on there, Genevieve Hansen. She says witness had a tense exchange with the Derek Chauvin trial judge in which he warns her not to argue with the defense attorney or the courts.
We're outside the hearing of the jury, Ms. Hanson. I'm advising you, do not argue with counsel, and specifically, do not argue with the court.
Is the camera though? Are the cameras on?
No, they're not. We're on the record.
Okay.
You will not argue with the court. You will not argue with counsel. They have the right to ask questions. Your job is to answer them.
I was finishing my answer.
Who the fuck is this judge, man? She's allowed to have feelings like that.
So, do not argue with the court. Do not argue with counsel. Answer the question.
Shut the fuck up, you stupid judge. She's allowed to have feelings.
The attorneys for the state have redirect. They can ask you questions if they think that certain things were left out. It is the council's prerogative.
She wasn't arguing, dipshit.
And for you to answer
She's allowed to have
and
feelings. She was getting emotional.
volunteer additional information. Are we clear on this?
Okay.
Thank you. Come back tomorrow at 9:30.
All right.
What a fucking dickhead this judge is.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
Design.
What a dick. She wasn't arguing. I never seen her argue one time. Yeah, she was getting emotional. So what? Here we go.
Do you need a minute?
Witness breaks down on stand watching Floyd repeatedly say, "I can't breathe." Video shows police telling George Floyd to get in the car while Floyd tells others, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe."
Oh my
When you're ready.
Well, just give you a moment, Mr. McMillan. I'm not sure if there's water as well. If you need a break to get some water, let me know, and we can take a break.
Obviously, very difficult moment inside that courtroom. Difficult outside that courtroom, frankly, difficult to watch it, even from this seat. That video showing the distress that George Floyd was in as he was being put into that police cruiser, and that right there is a man named Charles McMillan, who's an eyewitness who was trying to have a conversation with George Floyd to tell him to just accept it, to get into the car. He can't win. You heard it there on that tape. And then you see at the end of that video where they cut, that's when George Floyd was taken back out of the car. And that's when you saw Derek Chauvin's knee saying repeatedly, "Mama, mama, mama," and saying, "I can't breathe," in a way that, frankly, I just don't think we've seen before in such dramatic detail. Back with us now is Georgetown law professor and former federal prosecutor Paul Butler. Paul, I'm going to hand it over to you because, boy, that was hard to watch.
It never gets easier to watch that video. So the prosecutors want to rebut the defense that the force that Officer Chauvin used was reasonable because George Floyd was resisting arrest. Mr. Floyd says that he's claustrophobic. And so the prosecutors want the jurors to understand that Mr. Floyd was traumatized about getting into the squad car, not because he was uncooperative, but because he had claustrophobia, and he also had experienced trauma from previous encounters with cops where they pointed a gun at him. And so I think that this witness has been effective at communicating those points. And Katie, if I may, just a quick shout out to this prosecutor. She's the first lawyer we've heard from who sounds like a human being and not a robot. So she's easy to listen to. She relaxes the witness. This is the first lawyer we've heard from in this case who I would tell my law students to look to as an example of how to try a case.
When a witness like this breaks down like that on stand, what does it mean for the case? What does it signal to the jury?
Every eyewitness to Mr. Floyd's death has experienced trauma.
Former federal prosecutor.
By my count, this is the fourth or fifth witness who has broken down on the stand, who has cried. And so this is emotional. I just accuse lawyers of sometimes sounding like robots, so this will sound a little bit unfeeling. But the prosecutors don't mind this at all. This is good for the state's case because, A, it suggests how high the stakes are. Mr. Floyd was a human being.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel.
Well, we'll get some more later on that. With that said, I'm out of here. Mike drop. Peace out.